Anna, when did you start working in telegraphy?
1923.
And how did you decide to get into that area?
Well, I didn't decide to get into telegraphy. I went to the Bell Telephone to get a job. And when I went over there, I wasn't old enough because I was only 16. And the lady over there, the employment director, she said, "I'm sorry, but you're not old enough because our operators have to work to 12 o'clock and you're not old enough." But she said, "Why don't you go to the Western Union? They will take girls over there at 16. So I walked all the way from the 21st Street all the way over to 11th and Locust, walked in on a Saturday and asked for a job. Miss Stevenson, the employment manager, she said, "How old are you?" So I said, "I'll be 16 tomorrow." She says, "All right, come into work Monday." And I started work the day after my 16th birthday at the Western Union. My first job was what they call a check girl, which is really a glorified file clerk. I took the telegrams as they came down off. We had conveyor belts, and they would go to different drops to the different cities. The Philadelphia office was a large office. We had wires all over the country and Europe. And I would take the telegrams and file them to the operators that had the wires. We had 3 different kinds of sending there. We had multiplex, Morse, and telephone. And I happened to be in the Morse aisle. And I got acquainted with the dots and dashes, and I thought it was a pretty neat way to work. So when you were at the Western Union for a few months, you had your choice of whatever school you went to. They would send you to school, and you could pick out what you would want, and they would send you and train you as whatever you wanted to do. And I picked the Morse because I thought it was nice, not thinking that I would be a minority there because there were mostly all men. There was about maybe 20 women. But I went to the school anyway. They had a regular school. We went 4 hours a day. We were taught by one of the real good operators. And I went, I don't really know how long. We worked with one another in the school, and we sent and received. And when you got to a certain speed, you were put out on the wire as a student, and you were put alongside of one of the senior operators that looked out for you. And he would take over for you if you got in any messes, and I got in plenty of them. But after a while, he said, you're on your own now. So then they started me out on the real little tiny ones wires that had maybe sent 2 or 3 telegrams a day, mostly railroad, way wires we called them. And from then on, I sort of worked my way up until I got pretty good and I could send on the fast wires and receive. As far as the daily, we just sent and received all day long. We worked 2 hours. We had a short relief, worked 2 hours, we had our lunch, worked 2 hours more, had a short relief, worked 2 hours and went home. We were allowed to work so much overtime, I can't remember, but it was, the men could work as long as they wanted, the women couldn't. And we did not get as much money as the men. We were not paid as much money, which was always a sore spot with us. It was like any other place. The last on was the one that got all the bad jobs. So in the summertime, I was sent out to all of the firms that had their own private wires and had Morse operators there. So when their vacation time would come up, or they'd want sick time off or anything, they'd have to send to the Western Union for a Morse operator, because nobody else in their firm could work the wire. So I used to be out practically all summer long relieving their operators for vacations. I enjoyed that very much. Some of the people didn't like it, but I did, because I got around to different firms. I made friends with different people. I was my own boss. I had my own little office, and nobody else knew what I was doing, only me. So they couldn't tell whether I was bumming or whether I wasn't. But they were very nice. I will say that. Most of the firms, I was to Bethlehem Steel, Phoenix Iron, Sears and Roebuck's up on the, in Philadelphia, up at their main office on the boulevard. And I really enjoyed that very, very much. Well, then came the changeover. The Morse was going out, so finally they sent me to school, and I had to learn telefax, simplex, multiplex. I learned them all. They even sent me to the telephone school, which I didn't like. Didn't like that at all. So I said, I don't want to work here, so they sent me back. But I enjoyed my days with Western Union very, very much. Then in 1952 or 3, somewhere along there, we had a strike. And I walked 52 days on the picket line. And I'll always remember that. And, but something good came out of it. They settled. AFFL was the one we got. And all the Western Union offices all over the United States went with AFFL, but the New York office, and they settled with the CIO. But we made out very good, the women did, because they had to pay us the same rate as the men, and they had to give us back pay till the time we were an operator. And that was very, very nice. And I really enjoyed going around with that check, showing all the men operators that I was making just as much money as they were. So, and I worked there for 36 years, and I enjoyed every minute of it.
Give us an idea of some of the messages that you would send,
Okay.
the types of messages, type of traffic you would handle.
Well, I handled all kind. We got all kind of messages. A lot of them were death messages, which I never liked to get, or send or receive. A lot of them was business messages. As I said, I worked with a lot of companies. Companies would send in, and of course, they didn't really mean anything to us one way or the other. Social, we handled a lot of birthdays, anniversaries, get wells, all those kind. We had one message that I remember was a funny message. Minister was someplace, and he wired to his wife what the text was and the size of the whatever he was going to put it on, and she wired back, unto us a child is born, 6 feet long, 4 feet wide. And that went all over the Western Union because, you know, if you didn't know what it meant, it sounded so funny. And some of the movie stars had very hot romances and would wire back and forth, and I often think that they had no idea. They probably thought that the person that got the message, who sent the message, and the person that got it were the only people that ever read that telegram, because they certainly wouldn't have put anything in there. We were not allowed to send any swear words or anything like that. We would not accept anything like that. And but on the most part, the telegrams were very, very dull, because they were mostly, as I said, business, different things like that. If we got a funny telegram, it would go the whole round of the place before it was sent to where it was going, because we wanted to laugh once in a while, because just sitting there and receiving and sending messages was very dull, although I always enjoyed it. And as I say, you didn't really know what you were going to get. And when we would receive a telegram, we used to put our words down in groups of 5. We'd put 5 words down and leave a space and then 5 words. And that was to count the words, because we had to put a word count at the top of the telegram, which was a check, what we called a check. And that way we didn't have to sit there and count the words when we received the telegram. We just would put the amount of words up on the top and then throw it on the belt, and that would automatically take it to where it was going to go. So it was interesting. I enjoyed it very, very much. I worked with a very nice group of men. I enjoyed them. I'm still friends with a lot of them today. And some of the women too. As I said, there was only about 20 of them. But we got along very, very well.
What was your 8-hour day like, or whatever the day was? You came in the morning. Was it you just immediately sat down and copied for 8 hours, or how did it?
No.
Go?
When you came in the morning, you were assigned to a position and to a wire, and it was a wire. It's what we call a concentrator. Would have a lot of different wires come in there. Usually railroad wires or way wires, what we called them. And they had little lights on them, and when the operators would want to send into the main office, they would put their signal on, and then you'd plug in, tell them to go ahead, which was GA, and they would send. And if you had any traffic, you would take their traffic. If you had any messages for them, you would send their messages to them. You usually worked there, so you were sending and receiving for 2 hours. And then, as I said, we went on what we called a short relief. That was 15 minutes. Then you come back. You may go to the same place again, and you may go to somebody else and relieve them for their short relief. So you didn't work the same position all the time, because, as I said, the last on, you got all, so I was really more of like a relief operator. I would go to relieve them for their lunches, and we were supposed to get lunch after 4 hours, but sometimes if we were short of help, some of the operators wouldn't come in. Maybe it would be 5 hours before we went to lunch. As I said, we just worked, but it was the same thing all the time, sending relief and receiving, but never always at the same place, because I had no study wires.
How long was lunch?
Half hour, 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a very nice place. We had a cafeteria, our own lunch room, and our own place for us to go. Had our own locker room. I had a very nice place to work.
Did you, during a course of a day, find it very hectic, or was it basically...
Sometimes it was. Sometimes it was very hectic, especially around Christmas, when we used to have all those texts, or the people would call up and send telegram and say, well, give me number 16 or number 18. Then all they would do would give you the name and address and say number 16 and then the sign. Then you would have to take that and give it to somebody else. We had the tapes were already prepared. Went through a gummer tapes. I used to have one here, but I don't have it anymore. Somebody would sit all day and just prepare those tapes and then gum it on the telegram and send it over. And that was Christmas. We used to have boxes of telegrams sitting on the floor waiting to get rid of them. I can remember I didn't have a Christmas off for... Everybody worked Christmas. You worked 4 hours Christmas, and you never knew what 4 hours you got. Now, I worked different hours. I didn't work from 8 to 4:30 every day. Some weeks I worked from 3:30 to 12. Some weeks I worked from 12 to 8 in the morning, I had what they call trick work. But it was enjoyable. You get used to that, and I work Saturdays and Sundays every day. So, didn't really matter.
Tell us about the delivery of telegrams. Did they really have the people in those uniforms?
Oh yes, they sure did. We used to call them doggies. And they were down on the first floor. I worked on the 4th floor. And they were on the 1st floor, and yes, they did. They had them. They had ones that just walked. They had some that rode on the bicycles, and then we had the motor. People that had their own cars. And go sneeze. And yes, they did. But they went out. Well, they didn't have too many of them because people had got to the point that most of the was delivered over the telephone. They would telephone the message to the party and then send them a copy, mail them a copy, and that way they got rid of most of the messenger boys.
Mm-hmm. Did they have such things as singing telegrams?
Oh yes, indeedy, we sure did. We had that was in the telephone department. They had 2 or 3, I think it was a couple of ladies that all they did was sing the telegrams. They really enjoyed it. On the phone, they'd sing them over the phone.
They never did it in person then?
Oh no, never in person, but they sang them over the phone. Yes, and they really enjoyed it. And this one lady had a very, very lovely voice, and it was really a pleasure to listen to her, and I really enjoyed it.
Were these pre-printed design messages, or was the person actually, it's a little hard to sing some of the...
Yeah, well, no, it was, they had, if you wanted a singing telegram, they had the books there that you could pick out a text. Sometimes they wanted their own text, but they had different tunes that you sang them to. So you picked out your tune, your text, and that was the way we got around that. So it was nice. Yes, we did. And I will say this way, during the Depression, if we hadn't had the singing telegrams and the greeting, I guess the Western Union would have went broke. But that really kept us going. And I'm very glad, of course, they do, no more now, but they dropped that along, quite a while before I retired. But it really helped us.
You worked till about 1960.
I worked 36 years. I worked from 1923 to 1959.
Okay. Did you notice that through the decade of the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, that world events also had an impact on your... So if you'd start with the 1920s, what would you say was characteristic messages or characteristic situations you did in the 1920s?
There wasn't too much went on in the 1920s. We had just got off of the war, the First World War, and we were getting on with our lives. But during the Second World War, that is a war that I remember because the government took the Western Union over, and we really worked for the government. And we had to have passes to get in and out. We had little cards with our names on it that we could only go certain places in the building. And everything was very, very hush-hush. And we got, as the men would leave, our operators would leave to go in the service, we were getting people from all over the country to come in and take their places. Mostly girls. I was a instructor then. I would instruct these people in our routine because we had certain routines that we had to follow. So when they would come in, we had people there from Maine, Connecticut, all over. And so another lady and myself, we were their instructors. And all during the Second World War, I instructed these operators and looked over them and got them out of messes where they were. And I can remember them because we never had. We worked 10 hours a day. We had no time off. And I can remember the Second World War very, very well because that's etched in my memory, because working for the government's a lot different than working for the Western Union. But it was all right.
Let's step back for a second to the 1930s, which was a lot of the Depression going on. Did that? What kind of traffic was impacted by that?
Of course, it went down again. And we were working part-time in the Western Union. I worked 4 days a week. And it depended on how long you were there, how much you worked. And we scraped through as best we knew how. But it was pretty bad, let me tell you. And I got married in 1930, and my husband was working 4 days a week, and I was working 4 days a week. And then one time he got laid off, so there was only me working 4 days a week. So nobody can tell me about depression. I really got that. But then things got better, and his place, he went back to work, and we made out all right. But it was pretty grim.
Moving up to 1941, at our next club meeting, we're going to be mentioning where people were on December 7th.
Yeah.
Did you have a memory from that particular occasion?
Yes. It was Sunday afternoon. We were just sitting down to dinner. We had company came in. My sister-in-law and her husband, my mother, my husband and I, we were just sitting down to dinner when we got the news about Pearl Harbor. And the only thing I could think of was, oh, yeah, I hope my husband don't have to go. And I wasn't thinking about my sister-in-law's husband, and he's the one that went. But fortunately, he came home. But my husband never went because he worked for the Philadelphia Insulated Wire Company, which is now owned by GTE, General Telephone Electronics. And the Navy took them over, and he was making wire for the Navy, and they wouldn't release him. So I was fortunate in one way. But I don't know, the way he worked, no time off. I think sometimes it was worse for him because he had no time to himself. He worked, well, it was just tough. It was just tough, but I remember that day. We were horrified. We just couldn't understand what had happened, why they would do a thing like that to us, but we soon found out.
How did you find out? Where were you at the time? Were you like listening to the radio?
Yeah, listening to the radio. We had the radio on.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I think I had some music on, and it came over the radio. You know, they stopped everything, and we just, and so then of course. And also I can remember, I'm looking forward a little bit. Of course I wasn't working then, so I better not say that, because it has nothing to do with the Western Union. I was just talking about when Kennedy was killed, but that had nothing to do, I wasn't in the Western Union then.
So you moved into the 1950s, and you saw a lot of technological change.
Yes, that's when the Morse went out. We had very few, just a few Morse wires left. And we got in what they call private wires, page printers. And we took all these different firms that had their little wires in their place. And they would send our telegrams to us. It was a lot of changes. And little by little, they just sort of fell off in the Western Union, just went right on down. So I thought it was time for me to get out, so I just took my pension and left. And that was it. I left in 59, I think it was 58, 59.
Did Western Union send money?
Oh, yes.
Like they do today?
Oh, yes. That was one of their big things then. And that's the only thing they do now. Send money. Oh yes, they've always sent money. They've always done that. Yeah.
How about when they came out with the candygrams?
Oh yes.
Was that a...
That was all right. That was pretty good. They sent a lot of them. And it was a novelty. They were always looking for some kind of novelties to make money. And of course then they started with the satellite and all that rest of stuff. So that's... They got more into the high-tech thing, and I don't know whether it was good or bad. But it said the telephone got so popular, and it was so easy just to pick up the phone and call somebody long distance. See, years ago, that long distance wasn't there, and there was the wires, is what your telegraph wire. Well, when the telephone perfected their long distance thing, it really, I think, was the one that marked the demise of the telegram, because it was, you didn't have to worry, because the only thing nice about the telegraph was you always had a copy there. You had a printed copy, so you knew, you know, if somebody said, well, I didn't say that, well, it was right there in black and white, and they can get away on the telephone, oh, I never said it, you have no. So that's it, so.
My other question is the word stop. A lot of times people read the old telegrams and
yeah,
say,
I know.
Why do they do that?
Well, I guess the people wanted to be sure that they knew just where they were stopping your thing. And because, see, if you put any punctuation in the telegram, you had to pay for it anyway. Everything was charged for. And I don't know, they started that stop because you'd say, you know, I will be home at 5 p.m., stop. We'll see you someplace else. And that's what they put it in. But that's sort of, they didn't go in the business telegrams, never had them in. They never had them in. They would just say right off what they wanted to say, and that was it. And of course, most of them were very dull because we didn't even know what they were talking about half the time, so they weren't. But the stop was in there, yes, they did use stop a lot.
When you had a telegram that was, say, important, or did you ever get like sort of emotionally involved with a telegram? It was obviously, you know, something that was a personal item. How did you sort of separate yourself from getting distracted?
You have to, you have to separate yourself. You can't sit there while they're ding-donging in your ear and think about something, because you lose, you'd have to break them and go back and tell them to start over again. So you usually, you're just putting down words. You're just putting down words, and it's usually when you get through the telegram and you read it over before you really get the gist of it, and you know what they're saying, because otherwise they're just words. And no, I never did get emotionally involved. I would feel sorry when I would read about somebody dying or something, especially a well-known person, I would. And it was fun to read about their lives, different things.
Any famous people you recall?
Oh gosh, let me think. No, right offhand I can't, Mike, I'm sorry. It's been a good many years since I've been there. And
okay, could you tell us a little bit about your setup here?
well, my setup here is what they call a dial-up. I can send and receive cut tapes with this. I have it here, and this is my key and sounder. I make the tapes, I send the tapes, they come out like this, and I send them to the operators all over the country that I trade tapes with. I enjoy that very much. And then the first and third Thursdays of every month, we have what we call a dial-up. We have a hub. And anybody can dial in on that hub, and we can talk to one another through this, through here, through this, like this. So that we can talk to the people that we send tapes to but we also can talk to maybe 6 and 7 people at one time. Of course, we have to take our turn. But it's very, very nice, and I'm enjoying it very, very much. But I do a lot of tape. I send a lot of tapes, and as you can see, I have pictures almost from every place. One man, Ed Trump on Fairbanks, Alaska. I talked to him. This is the man in Alaska, Ed Trump, with his wife and 3 sons. These 2 pictures here are his telegraph set up in his home. He also has one right alongside of his bed. I don't know why he has it there, but he does. But he's very, very interesting to talk to.
Can you show us some of your other pictures there?
Well, this is one from Chuck Daly that lives in Spokane, Washington. And this is his telegraph place. And that's the only pictures I have of the ones that I trade tapes with. I have some of these here with different people that I've talked to. These are usually sent to ham radio operators, but they were kind enough to send me these when I talked to them over the wire. These are all the people that are on the dial-up. These are all people that I talked to over the hub. People that I exchanged tapes with. So you can see it's a diversified crowd, and they're from all over. Iowa, Wisconsin, New Jersey, Florida, Alaska, Washington, California. Oh, I could go on and on. They're from all over, Texas. So these are the people that get on the dial-up every first and third Thursdays of the month. And you never know who's going to get on there. It depends on, and it is open to us from 8 to 10 p.m. via Ace Holman, which has the hub in his home, and you just dial in. You dial in over the telephone. If you dial in the telephone, you take the phone down like this, leave it like this, turn your thing off, and they talk. And when you have finished talking, the way to get on, you just turn the key there, put your telephone receiver up, and you're out. But it's very interesting to talk to people, and it's more interesting when you meet them for the first time. So sometimes they look like you think they should, and other times they don't look a bit like they should. But I'm enjoying it very, very much, and I really get a kick out of it. I enjoy it, and I have got 3 tapes here that I have to send to answer. One is from a man in Post Falls, Idaho. One is from a man in Yuma, Arizona. And this one is from June Peterson in Spokane, Washington. There's only 1, 2, 3 ladies on the dial-up. All the rest are men. So this is one of the ladies.
How do you go about, simulate how you would go about responding to a message or receiving the recording?
Well, when I receive the recording, I just put, wait till I get this one. We have 2 different kinds of tapes. We have tone and sound. That's sound, so I'll put the tone on. I just put the tape in here, turn this on. piano, he said. See, pure, very nice tape. And I appreciate. See, that's how I listen to what he has to say. I take it all down, and if I want to have anything on there that I want to, when I answer, because I can't remember because it's on both sides, I have to turn it over. Then when I answer his tape, I'll look to see what he has asked me, and then I will think. And to make the tape, I do exactly the same thing. I put a blank tape in here, do the dots and dashes, turn it over on the other side, then put it in the mailer. We have mailers that come. We have the whole things. These are the mailers, and these are the tapes I use. And send them off. And that's pretty much what we do. It cost you 52 cents to send one of these. And but it's a nice way. It's a good hobby, and I enjoy it very much. So.
Anna, what do you mean by a sound record?
Yeah. Well, see, sound. You just use this. It doesn't go through your modem at all. It's the sound. You listen to the sound that comes in your cassette. Now let me see. Where's the sound tape? I wonder if I can. You'll just hear it here. Wait till I get this. Now that's sound. Now let me see. For sound, I got to do something else. Tape, mic and cut tape, then pull out the monitor, plug and listen. Okay. See, I'm listening to just here. It's not coming through the key and sounder. It's coming through my cassette. See, it's only coming through here. It's not coming through there. Tone tape comes through here. Sound tape comes in here. Now, some people are not set up to cut tone, so therefore they just cut. Now, if I want to send a sound tape, I just put it in here, and then I just on here without going through here, and then that sound goes on here. Yeah. So that's the difference between. I don't know. So that's why I said about this. She's a sound tape.
Could you send something with your key, just to show us what you would send normally at when you have a dial-up meeting?
Yeah, sure.
Just from the sound itself.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Well, see, that's the trouble. I have to be on the phone to do it. I can't do without the phone. But I can make the noise here.
Mm-hmm.
Get rid of that whistle. See, what I would do, I would call on the phone and there, but the first thing I would do when I would call for the hub, I would get on here and I would call KB, which is Knickerbocker, which is Ace Holman's call. And then he would come in and he'd say, "Hi, KB." Then I would say, "This is RU at LT." RU is my personal sign. LT is Leisure Town, my office. Our offices have. And then he would say, okay, here. And then he would say, okay, you're on. Then somebody else was on there. They'd say, hi, Ann, this is Harmon at Newman, Arizona. See, they would come in and tell me, and then I would talk to them. Then somebody, Stan Hines would come in from West Virginia, or Chuck Daly would come on from Seattle, Spokane, Washington, or Keith would come in from Post Falls, Idaho. So you never knew who you were going to get. It was very, very interesting, and I've really enjoyed it very, very much.
What kind of personal enjoyment? You've been to the past, some of the past Morse days.
Yeah.
Before we had them at Aces, do you remember what was the setup like with Western Union involved?
Well, they were at our meeting, of course. It would be at our meetings.
Where would the meeting have been? What location?
Kavanaugh's.
Okay.
Yeah, not the other, the first Kavanaugh's. You were never there, were you?
Well, no, 32nd and Market?
Yes.
Okay.
That was the first, that was where we had it. Well, they had the set up there. And it would go through the Western Union thing. And you never knew who you were going to get on there, of course. It was interesting. I enjoyed it. And but being that I'm into this dial up now, and I have these more people, because you would get on there to get on with people, and you wouldn't even know who they were because you had you'd only talk to them over on Morse days. This way, I talk to the people all year long, and then on Morse days, when they come in on the Morse day, you know them, you know who they are, and say, oh, here you are, how are you? And I think the setup they have at Aces is so much nicer, but of course it's kind of hard to get to, for everybody. That's the only problem I have for myself, not for other people that lives out there. It's fine.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you recall those Morse Day celebrations?
Yeah.
And they were handled through Western Union.
That's right.
But of course now with Aces, I think there's certain improvements, certainly.
Yes, I think they are. I think they're nice. Of course, Western Union, they more wanted... Well, I don't know. I think we have a little bit more freedom, let's say, to what we do, how long we have it, because we only had it for certain hours. This way, Ace can have it as long as he wants it. It's up to him. Mm-hmm. We have a little bit more freedom, I would say.
Now, you were at the last one, you were on the line from here?
No, I didn't get on from here. What happened? Morse Day, what happened? I didn't get on. Did I?
I think you may have called in. I'm not sure.
I can't remember. I don't remember, Mike. I really don't remember, but I don't think I was on.
How about some of the meetings when we visited places, or when you visited, like demonstration meetings like Trenton?
Yeah.
How do you enjoy that?
Oh, I enjoy that immensely. I think it's wonderful. I enjoy meeting the people, explaining to them what we do.
What's the most common question you usually get?
Well, how do you know what he's saying to you? And the one thing that amused me more than anything was when they would go down, they would write at where I was, and I would send it to the other office, and they'd come back and they'd say, that's not my handwriting. And it always amused me because they thought that they would have their own handwriting would come down, and then I'd have to explain to them, no, that's not your handwriting, that's my handwriting. And then but I still don't think that half of them didn't understand. It's hard to grasp something like that unless you're into electronics or something. Kids, I think, pick it up better than the older people. Kids are, they're pretty smart nowadays, and I think the older ones, you have to sort of walk them through, but the kids are pretty smart. They get onto it real fast. So I enjoy that very much. I enjoy going to the demonstrations. And I worked for Western Union for 36 years. I never regretted one time or one day that I did. I enjoyed my work very, very much. I enjoyed my co-workers. I have lasting friendships with them to this day. And I can say that I'm very glad that I choose Western Union.